Baby.
Hi.
You know what time it is.
What time is it?
It's Studio Johnny Q time.
Oh, yeah.
That means it is time to drop your nerd drawers, baby. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure it's sexy.
Well, it sounds sexy indeed. Hail and well met, fellow time travelers. I am Johnny Q here in Studio Johnny Q. We have Randy with us because it is time for Addition Through Distraction. This is our twice-a-week podcast. Hey, Randy. How you doing? This is our twice-a-week podcast where we talk nerd stuff while I do my crafting. A lot of times we sit here and we play the musics, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Randy joins us for some good old conversation. So, how you doing today, brother?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. Let me move some of our cameras around here. And actually, maybe... Try to sit down here. The camera's a little wonky since we were in D&D mode. And let's see here. There we go. So...
Let me do a little audio test here of the YouTubes. See how this sounds.
Right on. I'll take a look here at our chat topics for today. So if you can lend me half an ear.
Right, I'm good. Sounds good.
Yeah, cool. Good. So we have our titular moment, which will be DM Hangover. So since we had D&D last night, we'll be recapping our board. We still want to talk about Voyager 2 and some philosophical quandaries that you'd had, Randy. Mental Health Minute is our kickoff point is you have a right to exist. First 50 review. We're still at 28 of 50. We're trying to get that first 50. D&D. We can talk some of the sheet. Looks like you may have hopped in your sheet and updated it because I think at least that the icon was updated. So I'm assuming that you got in and kicked around so we can talk about that. And,
yeah, I just took a quick look and I was actually fighting a bad headache during our sesh. So
I appreciate you still.
I did not. I got a quick look at that page. I didn't delve too deep into it. What's up, Tater?
Yep. So we still have that to discuss then.
It looked like it was almost showing me things from your perspective within D&D Beyond. But I'm not sure if I was supposed to be. It looked like I maybe had access to everybody's character. I'm not sure. I didn't delve into it, but just from the way it looked. From what it was presenting me, it looked like maybe it was presenting me the DM's access as opposed to just mine. Maybe not, but that's what it seemed to be just from a quick glance at it.
Yeah, because what happens is that I can create unassigned characters and then people can claim them. Now, once they've claimed them, I would assume that meant that they could edit it and I could edit it as a DM. So I'd be surprised if you were able to edit or change their stuff, but maybe.
Yeah, I didn't try to do any of that. It just seemed like more of a comprehensive view than I was expecting.
That could be too. Yeah. Good to see you, Tater. Thanks for hopping on today, brother. And then the last thing is just the craft review. Is we've got our tiles, which we did some base coating on, which is Mod Podge and paint, the BMC base coat. And we will be looking to dry brush and put some ink wash on those. Those will look pretty cool. So, with that, we are going to be reviewing our session from last night, but I'm going to have to do a slight recreation because it looks like the bridge went kabooms. Let's see here. If we take a look here.
Because see that goblin arse hiccuped and imploded.
That's right. Yes, it was. This is kids.
Bridge?
This is why you don't try to light farts. This is a bad idea. Bridges could go kaboomies. So yeah, our bridge here has fallen. Let's see if we can get our M50 up and running. All right. Okay. So, boom. There should be a bridge there that is on the ground. Alright, let's see if we can get this resituated. I'm not sure it's my less drapiness to hit other things. So, this. Are you wanting to come in, Cooper? Is that what's going on? I guess that is an affirmative. Well, hi,
Cooper.
buddy. Hi, buddies. Yeah, did you just push the door open? Whoa, you're all wet. I need to go try out Cooper real quick. He must have just came in from outside. He is sopping wet, and I don't want him to.
Oh.
Let me see here. See if I can. Come over.
Is it raining there? It's not
Yeah,
raining.
yeah. It's raining really. Let me see if I turn.
Crazy.
Hi. Hi, buddy.
Cooper.
Hi. Let's.
Who's
All right,
that, buddy?
let me take and dry him off real quick. Listening.
Take a little break. That'll give me an opportunity to get my coffee. Real quick. Oops. Sorry, kitty.
I'm back. Yep.
What you doing?
He definitely was in need of a wipe down. He had just run downstairs. Carrie hadn't had time to get him. Here we go. All right. So we've got our M50. Trying to.
You starving to death?
We got everybody.
Need your turkey?
We got all the animals on the. It's an animal cast. We're all animal friendly up in here.
Kitty's begging for turkey.
I like turkey. I'd like to catch a turkey. Right here. Yes, I know you would in there. Come on in. Come on in, Shaggity Raggedy.
Excuse me.
Hi. Hi, punk rocker. Don't have a punk rocker now. Do you put a lot of product in your hair, do you? Is there a lot of zhuzhing? Require a lot of zhuzhing?
Got a faux hawk going.
Yeah. It's looking stylish. Alright.
So metal.
Yeah. The weight of this compromised the structural integrity of the thing for which I was trying to use. This is no longer going to work until we fix it. Let's see if we can replace it. Well, we have a couple of options. So I guess I could have showed it. These wood planks. Let's see what camera we've been looking at. Hold on a second, let me switch. We have these sections here which are holding up the bridge, and they kind of look like this. Or here's a better example, probably, of what they look like. And on like this one, this bridge is actually got glued on, and so the same thing with like these. There's some pieces that they're glued on, and they became now whopper jawed. And so as soon as I put the bridge on it, it was pulling that piece off. So I'm gonna bring it back over. Show me, don't tell me. All right, so we had this situation here, so now it's all reoccupied. So we'll have to fix that. But in the meantime, we can just use this as a stand-in and go from there. I was happy that Furian enjoyed his Halo spheres that we created. That was cool.
Spores. Halo spores.
Oh yeah, Halo spores. Thank you for understanding what I really mean and not what I say.
Yeah, it's a nice piece. Came out well.
Yeah, for an ad hoc.
Nice and pretty.
All right.
Makes me want a real one.
So he has his Halo going on. We had, well, I'm gonna be recreating. Oh my Lord! Let's go do it all over again.
Got to cover up that fallen giant. It's exposing his dungeon wallet there. It's indecent.
Yeah, that was funny. It's a dungeon wallet. That's a memory. Thank you for that. That was one of the things. I didn't see a lot of chat last night, but that was one of the moments I did catch. The dungeon wallet, moose knuckle conversation. It is a rather sort of graphic depiction.
So what would the D&D equivalent to a moose be? We need to make it that type of knuckle.
A moose knuckle? So yeah, it'd be like an owlbear knuckle or something. I'm asking a lot here of these pillars. Apparently. I did not realize how much that I was requiring of them. Well, let's see here. Okay. So let us try to work towards recreating our situation, our scenario. So we'll put this down just at least for a second while let's take a picture. Go back into. All right. So let me see here. So we started our session with Catchpenny on top of the roof. He's the traveling merchant, which the party had just teamed up with to pass through, specifically to help pass through hill giant territory. He got himself in a spot of bother, and he was trapped on top of his merchant cart. And so let me just go ahead and grab all these people here, move them out of the way. And so there was one giant over here that the party had already kind of contended with, and they ended up defeating him by giving him an internal identity crisis, essentially. They messed with his mind, and he had a critical fail, and so he kind of just ended up removing himself from play. He couldn't decide whether or not he wanted to engage in this conflict or not. And so he got removed from the scenario, but this giant over here had taken up and started throwing rocks. And that was where last session had ended before last night. So that's kind of where we picked up the room and the initiative order. When we do initiative, everybody just rolls, and then we just kind of go in. Well, we would go clockwise on the table, but since we're not sitting at a table. But the room got a roll. It had a natural 20, so it got to go first. And so it was, this guy hadn't charged up from being able to throw his rocks. The way that it is, the hill giants, they got powerful attacks, but they can only attack every other turn. So he was waiting to attack, but Catchpenny decided that he didn't want to be on top of the cart anymore. So he actually has a command word that can churn his cart, which apparently is magic or has some sort of magic abilities, and is able to reduce it so he can put it into his pocket, which you guys knew that already. That wasn't a surprise to you, although to Nicholas, he was a little pissed that he wished that he would have done it a little sooner than later, and had said so. Let me move this wagon, because it is... So he ended up reducing himself down.
Yeah, you were. You were livid. I remember. You were.
I wasn't mad about anything.
Yelling about it. And
no, you weren't, but Nicholas was.
Cursing left and right and every which way.
He's like, does anybody want to say anything to Catchpenny? And you were the only one who's like, yeah, I wanted to say, you could do that the whole time. As I recall, it was something like that. So that was what Nicholas did. Yeah, so he did that. And then let's go ahead and see if we can recreate the bridge now. And the way that we had discussed previous was that let's see here. How much did we have this?
Way to maintain a professional distance between yourself and your character, Tater. Well done. Good point. Tater said the guy who could have helped out instead of throwing stuff on the ground that hurts his customers.
Yeah, I don't.
So he's the one who threw the caltrops out, I take it?
Yeah, so he was he was on top of his thing, and so he was trying to be helpful. And so on his turn, he would rummage through the cart and try to find something that was helpful, and he would pretty much just throw out whatever he found. So yeah, the caltrops were actually his. I would think that was the first thing he found.
Peter said, so Nick is valid for feeling the way he feels.
Yes. Nick has a right to exist. That's our mental health minute. Is that, you know what? You have a right to exist. You didn't ask to be born, right? Right, Randy? Nobody asked to be born. Not one
Correct, sir.
Not one single person. So you do have. I have to remind myself that.
Unless you prescribe the belief that you do.
Yes, unless you do.
There's a school of thought that says that when you're reincarnated from the soul well, that you choose your parents and you hang out in the... I can't remember the terms that they use for it, but
Yep.
wherever the
So
universal consciousness hangs out, that you plan your interactions when you're corporeal.
yes. So well, yeah. Do your own fact finding, apparently, but do your own esoteric philosophical fact finding. Um, we yeah, so but I think about that. It's like you wake up sometimes thinking, I have to this, I got this, I have these obligations, I have this, and it's just like, you're really not obligated to anything. Obligations are a restraint that you put on your own mind, and you you just have to be. That's really all that your responsibility is to be. I do think that there are greater responsibilities than that. I do think you have a responsibility to be kind to other people and things like that. But first and foremost, your first responsibility is just
Yeah,
to
it just
be.
depends. It gets it changes when you take society into account, your interaction thereof. But basically, yeah, just biologically,
Yeah, it's just like I think about
just
other
exists.
animals.
Just to
You,
exist.
you, you look at every other animal on the planet, and they don't act like we do. Like that, there's some sort of moral imperative or something along those lines, right? It's just what is
So
the
they still
role?
have
What is the role of the
like a
tree? What is
beaver.
the role of a? You say a beaver?
Yeah, like a beaver, it's like genetically predisposed to make dams like nonstop. Like it can't help itself. It has to always be trying to make dams and stuff
Always be
and
damning.
repair that dam.
ABD. Always be damning.
No wonder if humans have anything like that. That's sort of a genetic imperative for it. That it can't help but have to try to do these things.
Worry.
Mm, I mean, maybe.
I think we might.
Hopefully
I'm
not.
sorry, that was not the answer you were looking for. Maybe. Oh. All right. I think Dart was back here. It was right around here, something like that. We had her pet. I think was back here with Lena.
Oh, I just watched the video, slideshow video, I think, about. I was talking about raccoons and how it used to be said that raccoons wash their food before they eat it.
Mm-hmm.
This was saying that's not true. That they really only do that in captivity, and they think that it's like a genetic carryover. There's another word for it. It's not. They don't say genetics. I don't think it has to do with like ingrained behavior because of their natural habitat and repetitive behavior. So in their natural habitat, they would be eating like seafood and stuff, or aquatic life, and there would be water, and there'd be like a sandy bottom under the water or whatever. So that seemed to increase their likelihood to perform that function. If they like took some water, had it kind of shallow, and put some sand in the bottom, they seemed more likely to do that behavior than if it was just a bowl of water. Then they tested like temperatures to see if it liked warmer, preferred warm or cold water to do it in. That didn't seem to matter. They tried a few different things, but ended up saying that they're not really washing their food. They're just unconsciously performing this ingrained behavior because that's the way they're used to doing that thing in the wild. They kind of are forced without their knowing to do it when in a different way, the only way available in captivity. Although I swear I've seen like YouTube videos of people filming raccoons outside their house, wild raccoons, coming up and washing their food in the dog bowl and stuff. I guess that still kind of would follow along the lines of what they're saying, that it's just a carryover, like that's what's available at the time, but not that it only happens to captive raccoons.
That's interesting.
Anyway, I like it better thinking that they wash their food because it's cute.
Now, raccoons, they have opposable thumbs, right?
Yeah, I think so. I forget how many toes they have.
That's why I think they're so kind of interesting with the way they use their hands, because they have opposable thumbs. Okay, so
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're actually, and I think it's either them or possums. So I can't recall. Their fingerprints are like indistinguishable from humans. Us koalas.
yeah,
Koalas.
they would be
Fingerprints
nightmares
are
of
in it.
pets. Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. That's funny. All right, let me pull
Lots
back.
of people have them for pets. Some say that they're hard to deal with. Others say you just have to, get them young and train them properly.
Some say that they're best
You don't even
with a brown gravy.
you don't even have to make a bandit mask for them. They come with it already on there.
Yeah. I think if I had one, I'd have to name him the Hamburglar. Rabble. Let's see here. So if we try to do this again, that's some scenario like we were up here. All right, let's see if we can do a quick recap here, Randy, of our scenario. So as we said, we started with the room. Let me see here. I'll go ahead and put this on. We started out the session with Catchpenny, the merchant that they had been traveling with, on top of his merchant wagon, and he had been getting hit by rocks from a giant who was up here, who you guys had crippled mentally, essentially, using the most powerful weapon there is, self-doubt. And he ended up deciding to leave play. It was no longer engaged. You guys had, in the session before, just recently, felled this giant here, Gordo, who we did remark has a sort of unflattering build, and was showing what was termed the dungeon wallet. So one of the better highlights of it. We thank you for that, Shadows. And yeah, so he was already taken care of, and so we had kind of everybody that's kind of here in the middle, on this thing. They started over here. Basically, there was a winding path that's marked by pillars, and it comes over here, and there's a ramp up to this next level, and then there's a ramp here to the next level, and it winds, and then this is kind of the way out. So they're all bunched up right here. Catchpenny, the room had a natural 20 on the initiative, so they went first. The hill giant couldn't go because they could only go every other churn, so it didn't benefit him other than he got to burn that churn where he was waiting. There really wasn't anybody else that was interested in play, except for, I think, perhaps at some point early on, they recognized somebody from a previous session, which is this giant over here in the back that's holding the rock. Let me see if I can get my green pointy thing, what made for pointings. This gent right here. So he was the one that Nicholas had felled in the Crystal Keeps, and seemed to be the representative of the Hill Giants in their the working relationship with the Supernal Regency. So he used some commands and summoned this creature, which, Randy, you had mentioned a term. I can't remember what that term was. It's like a Mesoamerican sort of term, I think.
Quetzalcoatl?
Yeah.
Quetzalcoatl?
Yeah, and it actually is called Quaddle, the bottom of the figure. So that is certainly the inspiration for it. So points,
serpent god.
Points, but he ends up summoning that creature to do some work, and he takes to the air and is out of play, essentially. You guys can't see him.
Interesting tidbit about
Yeah.
Quetzalcoatl in history. Supposedly, I'd heard that there were some similarities in stories surrounding Jesus and things that he had done, and the story of like resurrection and coming back and stuff, and the second coming and all that. That there are parallels to within the Quetzalcoatl legends, and also that there was a potential that when the so it's conquistadors arrived, that they thought that they were basically a second coming of Quetzalcoatl or one of their other gods. So they gave them more leeway and hospitality than
they deserved.
Otherwise, may have been allotted. Well, definitely more than they deserved.
That's interesting.
Anyway.
No, thank you for that. All right, so if we move back to over here. So,
and also,
yeah,
sorry, raccoons apparently do not have opposable thumbs. Opposable means that you can move your thumb opposite your fingers, and that allows you to grip things. Apparently, theirs do not move opposite their fingers, but they still are extremely tactile.
Understood. Yeah, they must, so they can just do that, and they can only grip or claw. Well, I guess they don't even get grip or claw. They just... So, they can only palm. Well, they're still
can't quite get the Western grip down.
Yeah, they can't do the Western or the Eastern. But yeah. All right. So when we look here back at our wagon, looks like the roof is dragging on that wagon. That he says his command word for the magic surrounding his cart, and is able to shrink it down. And as we mentioned, Nicholas was a little upset, especially since he had just stepped on some caltrops that homeboy was just randomly throwing on the ground. So there was that. And then from there, he comes up to Shasta and says, "I have information worth sharing," and everybody just disregarded it and just left him be. Said, "Later for you, fool." And everybody was kind of making their way through here, and kind of congregating here at the base underneath the bridge. There is this ramp over here. Let's see if we can elevate. Sorry, here I'm trying to get a little reaching with the
jacks.
cameras.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Pickup jacks. Is that where you bounce the ball and you throw the little metal pieces? Yeah. Okay. You get some of those to represent the caltrops. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah, that is a great idea. I never thought of that. That is a fine idea. All right. So yeah, if you look here, you have this is kind of the path everybody's going right now, and then all the way back here is the ramp, which they're trying to get to. There's also, let's see here. If we take a look at our Shasta Supersized Pet was up there. If we take a look at the ceiling here, there is a jumbo ladder that, as the party moves on, seems to be the only way of easy motoring up to the top of the bridge. So everybody's kind of keeps they kind of decide to either move over to the ramp or to move over to the ladder. Catch Penny reminds everybody that they need his pony to pull the wagon. He says that they can get out of this part, but on the other side they'll want need the pony, so they need to get him. And as they keep moving through, they recognize that the pony is over here. So you had Shasta, who was over here at the bottom of the ramp. Her pet who's still supersized, had joined her, and Furion had made his way over to the bottom of the ladder. His halo spore still in effect. Dart and Raina and Dart's pet all kind of hiding out in these bushes over here. Nicholas also was at the ladder, and then Furion, his pet is able to climb rock faces, so he went and had him go ahead and climb up here to the second story, and then from there he had him climb up to the top of the bridge, but only because at this point, at the top of the bridge, previously they had only really seen these goblins at the top of the bridge, and they were just cheering and laughing and having a grand old time with what's been going on. But there was also an orc over here who is a bomber, and he dropped a bomb. You can see him over here. So he
dropped the bomb on me.
Dropped the bomb on
Baby.
me. Baby. Yeah. Good stuff. Bringing out the classics. That's what we do here. We actually do have a soft spot for 80s pop songs. So, yeah. So he ended up dropping bombs below, and while that was happening, so since that did happen, Furion's pet got sent up here and affixed himself to kind of the side and underside of the bridge unknowingly. But this guy dropped a bomb, and it was very successful in that some saving throws needed to be made on behalf of Shasta, who was right underneath it, and it ended up one-hitting her. She took 7 points of damage, had already taken some damage previously, so Shasta got dropped. And her pet, which these are like daemons, they're manifestations of their magics. So her pet goes back into her. And yeah. So we had that situation. And then at this point, actually I think Furion and Nick may have also been over there, but Shasta on her turn got a natural 20 on her first death save, so she actually popped right back up without needing anybody's intervention. And Furion ended up making his way up to the top here of the ladder. Let's see if we can. So the top of the ladder, he made his way all the way up, and again, easy to tell that his halo spores are in effect. And what happens is that if a creature is within 10 feet of him, essentially, so he's got basically a circle he's got like a circle of 10 feet around him, that if anybody enters it, they start to take damage from these spores. And the female gerblin, or the gerblin which identifies as being female, she made herself go over here to start to try to attack him, but she died even before she even got a swing on him, because within 2 turns, the spores, she failed both of her saving throws. So yeah, she ended up falling quite quickly. And then Nicholas, he was up here, and before she fell though, Nicholas ended up making his way across here in a nice little kind of death-defying feat, and made himself over here. The female gerblin, she ended up at that point falling from the spores, and at this point the flying creature ended up making itself known. It brought itself into play, and the only thing that it saw of merit was Nicholas, and so it hit Nick, and it took him down to 1 hit point, which was good because I don't want to think of what was going to happen if his body was going to fall from there. So yeah, he took 1 hit point of damage, and during this time, as Shasta, she gets back up, she decides that she'll work towards getting the pony that's over here. So she ends up moving over here, and then Dart comes to help as well. Her and her pet join over here. Rain is kind of over here hiding out in the bushes with Catchpenny. They're just trying to stay safe, especially because there's the bomber, so they're just staying out of the way. And then Nicholas's pet is with them as well. And then Dart's over here. And so between her and Shasta, they forge a path across, and using the immovable rod and some rope, they end up making a rope system across and lead the pony over here. And then at this point, Shasta has her pet pop out, and who's kind of like a genie, and pops out and does mage hand and is able to bring the immovable rod back and the rope. So they have successfully rescued the pony. The Druid Furion, one of the last things that he did, seeing how dangerous this potential flying creature is, he used one of his new spells and was actually able to bring him down to the ground. And so he currently is brought down, and it specifically talks about flying creatures. So he was able to bring these plant tendrils up from the ground and grab this creature and bring it down. So we currently have homemade webbing on him to indicate that he has been grounded, and we can put him on the cams. Yeah, right over here. So he got grounded. No Nintendo for him. No TV. Straight to bed. All right. Oh, and then there was one other thing though. Furion's pet, who was also on the side here. He ended up making some successful rolls in grappling contests with the orc, and took him and decided that after he had him grappled, that he would throw them into the river. And because not just wanting to drop him to his death, they wanted to throw him into the water, and was able to successfully do so. However, lots of people that drop in the water die because the surface tension of water sucks after falling 60 feet. So he took half damage from going in the water, but it still was enough to make him unconscious. But the party felt good that they had done everything that they could to try to keep him from that fate.
Yeah, 30 feet was enough to give me a concussion, just about.
Yeah, no doubt. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you went in feet first.
So that was the plan anyway.
All right, so you have that.
Don't listen to the videographer that's telling you, "Oh, rotate slowly. It'll be awesome."
Oh, that's right. No, yeah, I was thought. Yeah, you're talking about that thought. Yes, yeah. Oof, that was, man. Shadows, we went whitewater rafting.
The bridge jumping was a whole other thing.
Shadows went face first, and he was trying to do a flip off a rock like they prescribe you doing, and and he didn't have his rotation quite optimal.
Well, the videographer he knew what he was doing. He was trying to get funny. He just went a little too far. He didn't expect such a spectacular adhering to his instructions.
Yeah, I think Randy is certain that the videographer was trying to make him go face first, and it was they ended up they do the that is true. I think that is very, very true, Tater.
It made quite the
on your guide and how well your boatmates can listen. We had both sessions we'd had somebody get knocked out of the boat. I ended up getting knocked out of the boat the second time right before the end. I mean, like 30 seconds before the end. It was just like, oh hey, boom, we're gonna hit a wall just to see if we can knock somebody out, and that was me. But we had J2 got knocked under our boat the first time, and he was under there for it must have been a minute, and it felt like 3
that
hours.
was actually scary.
It felt like 3 hours.
The look on his face when he popped up was that wasn't cool.
Yeah, that could suck. But yeah, they do the videos, and they have a bar there and they show the video afterwards, and they give everybody a free token for a free beer, and so you're watching the video and they show everybody jumping off the rocks, and at the very end was they did a slow-mo of Randy's face plant.
And a rewind. And
a rewind, yeah. It's like, it's like, this is the part where you can see his brain concuss. But yeah.
Broke. I would think I was wearing my favorite sunglasses, which of course broke at that point, and lucky it didn't go in my eye. Yeah. I lost one contact and found the other like 3 days later. It had gone like behind my eyeball somehow.
Good times.
Good times.
So yeah, everybody look into whitewater rafting. We highly prescribe it. Although we did have a lot of fun.
Jump off the rock at your own peril.
Well, jump off the rock all you want. Just flip at your
Don't
own
listen
peril.
To the videographer.
flip at your own peril. I've jumped off the rock a couple times and never had any issues. Not those issues. All right. So yeah, and I think that was Tater Shadows. Does that seem to be about where I think that's where the session ended, right? There was still Furion had advanced. Had just advanced, and I think and then I know Tater had begun to heal because he was at 1 hit point, and yeah, I think this is where the session ended up ending with these 2 Gerblins are still in play. Furion's up here, Nicholas is up here, and they had just freed the pony, and the bomber is in the water, and the flying creature, he's been grounded. And then the only other thing of note was that over here they found a giant like they did in the last session. He was chained to a pillar and looks as if he's had weird experimentation done to him. So they know that he potentially his attention has been provoked because of all the bombing that was occurring. And yeah, I think that was about it. Oh yeah, good guides can really make it or break it. Remember to popcorn if you fall out. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I mean, we did the thing where you do the whole weekend where you go down and you camp on the Friday, and then you do the stuff on Saturday, and then you camp Saturday night there at the thing. It's nice.
We've done it 2 or 3 times. It was an enjoyable experience.
Yeah,
mine were just unfortunately highlighted by an unfortunate incident at one point, but the rest of it was totally cool.
Yeah, the rest of it was awesome. It was amazeballs. All right. So I think with this being a successful recap, I think now I have to begin to dismantle this, and we'll go from here. Let me take another picture. Although actually, I would like to take more pictures before, so maybe take a few pictures here. So, Randy, do you want to hit us with your Voyager? The double upper. Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I was trying to figure out. But one's the Golly. That's the more gentle one, right? That's the one we did. The Golly River.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds correct.
And then what's the other one? It starts with like a T, I think. Where is it? I accidentally got the wrong shirt because we were like, I wanted to get a shirt for commemorative purposes, but we were in a hurry to leave at that time, and I grabbed the wrong one apparently.
So you got the one for the river we didn't do?
Yeah.
It says I'm a badass, and I mastered this river that I never even went on. I slayed the beast. That was the upper Golly or upper whatever it is.
That's weird. They're only showing the ones for the Golly here, huh? Oh well. Anyway. Yeah, the other one has the I don't know, what is it? At least a 15-foot waterfall drop, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of crazy twists and turns.
Yeah, I don't know. And this part here, we call this one the Widowmaker because really, because people die every year on this one. Okay. Awesome. What was neat was some of the bridges that you go under, and what they say that they close that bridge one day every year to let people base jump from it.
New River Gorge.
Yeah. Pretty country over there. West Virginia.
Yeah, I think they do some base jumping and stuff off of the bridge. So, yeah, Voyager 2. I had seen... I mean, there's a lot to say about Voyager 1, too, but...
Please state the nature of your medical emergency.
Wrong Voyager.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I have nothing.
That's a different Voyager. Although I did just see a kind of reunited apart. It's a different one, but with the Voyager cast, which is pretty cool. They also had the reunited apart with Back to the Future and Lord of the Rings and a couple others that look like they'd be really cool.
Oh.
I think you'd probably enjoy them.
Yeah.
What?
Sing a song, tell a story, whatever you want, but just keep the Borg distracted.
Nice. So I saw a YouTube video, and I think it was talking about Voyager 2 because it had some problems, and they'd lost communication, and they had just gotten communication back, and so it was down for like a couple months, I think. So at least a couple weeks.
I'm not hip up on my Voyager information. So Voyager, I remember in Voyager what we said. Yeah. Voyager in the 60s or the 70s, right? And it was a deep space probe.
Yeah, there were.
It was the first thing I think
twin unmanned probes.
Okay, and it was the first thing that we had that was man-made that had made it outside of the solar system, I believe.
Yes, I believe
and so. Also featured prominently in Star Trek 1.
Yes.
And then they made another one.
I'm not sure if that was... Is it Voyager 1 or Voyager 2 that was... I assume it was Voyager 1 in Star Trek.
Because I don't think Voyager 2 had even been created. Because when was Voyager 2?
Yeah, they're actually twin satellites. Voyager 2 was released 16 days before Voyager 1. Just because different trajectories... Well, no, I mean, there was a reason. Come on, guys. Voyager 1. Voyager 2 was actually released 16 days before Voyager 1. They were at different speeds because they were at different trajectories. They had slightly different goals. I think their main mission... I think their main mission was to explore Jupiter and Saturn. But then Voyager 2 also went on to have encounters with Uranus.
Huh.
Give a little dramatic pause there. And Neptune. And there's only space. Supposedly, it's the only spacecraft to have visited either of those two ice giant planets. Voyager 2 is the fourth of 5 spacecraft to achieve the solar escape velocity, which will allow it to leave the solar system. So I think Voyager 1 actually entered interstellar space first, and then Voyager 2 joined it. They each had their original interplanetary mission of planetary exploration. Voyager 2, I think, has explored more planets than any other probe. And there was some interesting things about... Have you ever heard of the heliosphere?
No.
JB?
I don't think so.
Heliosphere, yeah. Apparently, let me get the right... What does this say? So on August... When were they originally released? Okay, so Voyager 2 space probe launched by NASA on August 20th, 1977. So they were both released in 1977. Voyager 2 was launched 16 days before its twin Voyager 1. And...
Now, this was the one... Wasn't Voyager... I thought that... Okay, help me out here.
Mm-hmm.
What was the one that Carl Sagan was involved with that they put out there? And this is Voyager, right? They
both have a golden record.
Gold record, yeah, and all that stuff, and it has the recipe on how you can kill man if you want to, because it has our DNA on it. And yeah, so
and math, because that's what they assume is going to be the common language.
Yeah, and some reference to us based on star charts or something.
They sent porn into space on that golden disc.
That's alien porn. That's what alien porn is. Yeah, look, it's the Flintstones. I don't know.
That's now, since our radio waves and everything continue going out, some alien culture is probably going to encounter those before they happen to find one of the golden discs. So they're going to think that if there's any tentacle porn involved in those transmissions, they're going to receive that and be like, oh, this is the way they want to be greeted.
Ooh, wow. That's stark.
Yeah, that's a problem. Well, problem for some anyway.
Well, yeah, we were just watching. It's like, what was it? There was your documentaries. These are TV programs.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy or something.
Funny. That's
all right, so
oh yes, okay.
On August 25th of 2012, Voyager 1 flew beyond the heliopauls and entered interstellar space, making it the first human-made object to explore this new territory. And sorry, I've got so many different tabs open trying to get a good comprehensive here. So interstellar this, I can do that. Okay. So, oh no, it's not loading. Why is it all blacked out?
That's what she said.
Okay, so there's the heliosphere, and within the heliosphere, the different parts of the heliosphere, you have the heliopauls and the heliosheath, and there's also something called termination shock, which is a section around our solar system within the heliosphere. And it has to do with solar particles and how they behave and the distance that they extend before they start to drop off and then are just replaced with cosmic rays instead. Termination shock is the boundary marking one of the outer limits of the sun's influence and is one boundary of the solar system. It is where the bubble of solar wind particles slows down so that the particles are traveling slower than the speed of sound. That's the termination shock.
And these are yeah, it's true. I never thought about how would you define the boundary of the universe. I guess I just always thought Pluto would be what I would define the solar boundary as being. But
yeah, it's not. That would be like a planetary marker, or whatever they're determining Pluto is currently.
Yes,
but there's plenty of other. But as far as the solar system goes, the heliosphere is determined by solar particles. So That's the true reach of the sun, basically.
And
The
then,
point at which the sun stops having an influence on things surrounding it and other aspects have an effect. I think that interstellar space is defined as the point at which one solar system stops having an effect on the things around it and before another solar system has an effect. So it's that space in between the areas where different solar systems can affect the stuff around them.
gotcha. Makes sense. You know, Randy,
The helio sheath. Go ahead.
you know, with Voyager, and they talk about that golden disc. Now, see, I guess this is just my ignorance talking. I had always thought that meant that the disc was made out of gold. I didn't realize it was because it had pee porn on it.
It's the golden shower disc.
I guess, right? Is that what we're saying here? Is that the part that was that the disconnect that I had?
Lord.
I'm not sure that would be the best way that I would want to introduce ourselves to aliens, but then
So they're going to be like, Nanu, here, let me pee on you.
We greet you with the American, with the customary human exchange, and we pee in your face.
Lord. Let's hope not.
Yes. We have come to see your leader, R. Kelly. Please.
Do we need to hastily make a bunch of non golden shower alien introduction videos and get them out into the
just saying the first time you meet an
interstellar space as
alien,
quickly as possible?
You might want to wear a face shield. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, jeez. Bring an umbrella.
Man. Well, you know, that's what's funny too is if there are aliens that are remotely something that we can conceive that are like an animal or humanoid or anything, it's like sex would look so weird, right? Because it's like sex is just goofy. The only reason why sex is appealing to us is because we're crazy. We're programmed to think it's cool. But it's just like it was like like if you just took two random body parts, right, and you jam, it was like, oh, I'm gonna put my elbow in your belly button. And it's just like, I mean, so that's like aliens. That could be how aliens have sex, right? They gotta take their elbow and put it in a belly button, and, and it'd be like,
JB, that's not sex.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't say it was sex. I said it was sexy. No.
There's an episode of Will and Grace where I think they went to Willa and Grace went to a fortune teller or something, and she alluded to some stuff for Will that made him think that she was talking that his life partner was destined to be Jack, and he was very fearful and having nightmares and stuff about it. And Jack came in and put on a sweater or something, and he was having trouble getting his head through the sweater, and then it popped through, and Will freaked out. I was like, I'm not having sex with you. He's like, what? It's like, oh, honey, that's not sex. Sex is when two grown men get more greased up than a pig at a county fair and blah, blah, blah.
Jeez. Yeah, I can imagine that was funny. It's funny, because Megan Mahoney, right? Is that who was in there? Along with Will and Grace, right? She was kind of like Jack's...
Megan Mullally?
Megan
Mahoney, Megan Mullally?
Yeah. And then she is married to one of the greatest men of all time, Nick Offerman. And that show is worth watching just for all the times that she's on the show. Because she comes on the show as his ex-wife that he hates but can't keep from having sex with. And
which one are you talking about?
This is Parks and Rec. Nick Offerman.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah, his character, and it's like he hates her, and but it is so funny because they're so unabandoned with the way that they handle this because I think because they are husband and wife and just because of who they are. But I told you I saw that show with Nick Offerman, and I would see that anytime that he came. He was really a delight. He's an American treasure. Yeah, they're married in real life. And they're so funny whenever you hear him talk. I always like when she makes fun of his laugh. Because he has that, on Parks and Rec, he was always like, Yeah. You know, talk like
It's
that.
like kind of a girly giggle or something.
But he has this. Got a laugh that he does. Delightful. Yeah, he is. He is a national treasure, and she is a delight as well. But I guess sometimes they do a show together where it's the same sort of thing, where it's song and dance and jokes and such. But good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so I think I got my pictures here, so I can probably go ahead and start to disassemble. Now, you had talked about. Was there anything more that you wanted to discuss about Voyager 2?
Oh yeah, there's plenty more.
Oh hell yeah! Before we do that, so with your Uranus and Neptune, now they cross orbits, right? So which one is furthest away depends, right? It's not one's not always furthest away. I believe because I always was taught it was Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, so. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So I always was Uranus and Neptune, but I think Uranus and Neptune, I think they actually cross.
Yeah, mine was my very educated mother just served us 9 pickles. That's what we were taught.
Just who to what her?
My very educated mother just served us 9 pickles.
Oh, okay. That's kings play chess on fat girl's stomach. That's kingdom phylum, genus, species, whatever that is.
I can't remember. Ours had something to do with King Philip or something. I can never remember that one. For King of Phylum stuff.
Wow, Tater bringing it. He's helping us push that PG-13 boundary. We're making sure that we justify that.
I've never heard that before that those two switch. I don't think that's the case. I don't recall ever hearing anything to that point before. And there's such a vast difference between those planets. Like as you go out, the distance in between planets just keeps getting larger and larger. And there was one of the YouTube channels, I can't remember which one, it was either like Get Smarter Every Day or Vsauce or one of those. He tried to make a practical model, because what we're used to seeing is models of our solar system. Anytime you see a picture of our solar system or a physical model of our solar system, that is not representative. Typically not of size. Yeah, it just can't be. Not of size and certainly not of distance. So they were trying to make a practical one, and they were using, like, they started on a football field or a soccer field or something, and they put like the sun, which was like, I don't remember the size scales, but it was like, say the sun is the size of a soccer ball. Okay. They put that in the goal, and then the Earth was like the head of a pin, basically. That was like at the 50-yard mark or something, and then Pluto ended up being like miles away from that. Yeah, it was really far away. They had a drone that tried to go up and show the whole distance. It was really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like that. That's one of the things I liked about Mind Walk when she was trying to describe the scale of things. And it's like, we just don't have a real
space in between.
Yeah, we don't have
spaces.
We don't have the space in between things in space, and the space in between things at the micro and the macro. It's like, I think human beings were it's just damn near impossible, I think, for us to fathom those things. Because it's,
I was like, I've been just standing at the ocean or the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
is an overwhelming experience. The sense of scale you get there, the overwhelming vastness of those spaces alone, or how vast the ocean feels and endless, and how small that can make you feel. That's just the ocean. That's not even the world and the solar system or the universe, like.
Yeah.
Or the space in between subatomic particles, which. Oh.
Well, I just did something to my watch to make it want to find my phone. They're both right here. I'm not sure what I did. I must have just like triple. Yeah, let me see if I can pull up this picture real quick, because when you were talking about the scale, that's the way I felt when I was in the Rocky Mountains, man. It was just like, when Carrie was talking about wanting to go to the mountains, and I've seen mountains before and been in mountains, and it's been a while. And you see pictures and you just forget, because you're like, oh, that tiny little thing there, that's like a tremendously huge tree, right? It looks like
Yeah.
grass in the picture, but it's like, that's like an 80, 120-foot tree, you know? And you're like, the scale of what I can see, and it's just like, I can just see forever.
Yeah, we have such a false sense of distance based on scale and stuff too, because it's like you'll see a mountain in the distance and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's going to be what? Like, oh, I should be able to walk to that in like an hour. Actually, it's like a 2-day walk. It's so vast that you think that you'll be able to reach it within a certain time, and it's
Oh, yeah.
not even remotely like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, but here in Ohio, we're just used to things being so flat. And when the first time you
Mm-hmm.
encounter a real mountain, you're like, oh, we'll get to there in 30 minutes or whatever. You're like, no, that's. I remember the first time I actually went up a mountain, and you're like, how have we been driving in this mountain for hours? You know, we're still trying to get to the top. It's like, but this doesn't make any sense. But it's because you have to go so gradual as well. You can only go. You don't just go straight up the mountain, right? You have to. Let me see here.
Coming around the mountain.
Give me 1 second here. I wanted to pull out a photo reference here.
So there's some stuff about interstellar medium and more stuff about the heliosphere and the parts of it and stuff that are interesting, and I suggest you look at them, but we can skip that and deal with more directly with Voyager 2. So apparently both of the Voyagers had like at least a dozen, if not dozens, of different instruments and stuff that they used while they were doing their original planetary exploration mission. And I forget what their lifespan was. It's like 12 years maybe was the span of the original mission. Let's see, planetary exploration mission.
Randy, just real quick, so I can move to my other station here. I wanted to share this. Yeah, so this was a shot that I took from up top of the Rocky Mountains.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's like, that's a road.
And you're like, yeah, I could walk to that, and it'd probably take a couple hours. No, not so much.
I have another one, I think. Another one from the top there. It's that one. Sorry, 1 second.
Yes, I mean, yeah, anytime you go to a high elevation where you can see everything around you, that's...
This was the other side of that. So one shot was, in front of me, one shot was behind me. And it was just like, what? It was really weird because it was like at the end of a day and it had rained, and so like there was hardly anybody out. And then that was on top of a rock formation. And it has this thing here in the center is like a map of the mountain. So it was just really neat to find that at the top of a rock. Like you just didn't expect it, right? It was like a game that was rewarding you for exploration. And it had this little metal map. And then even like with some of these other ones though, where let's see here. Yeah, like something like this. And it's just like as you zoom in, and it's like, these trees are huge trees, right? These are not tiny trees. They look like bush and scrub. But when you start to realize how huge these trees are and how far you can see, and it's just like, what the heck?
Oh, look, they have so many friends.
And it's neat too, because like when you're up in the mountains, you can see, okay, this is a certain height where the trees stop growing. I didn't realize that was a thing, that when the air gets so thin that trees stop growing.
The tree line?
Yeah, so you can see the tree line here, because we were up here. This is about 2 miles up, I think. Anyways, I digress. Please tell us more about Voyager.
It's cool. I need to go back to some mountains sometime soon.
Yeah, that's National Trail Road. I just highly recommend that if you can just go through National Trail Road. That's where we ended up. That shots I had at the top of that mountain thing were just from a pull off that we did at the very top of the National Trail Road. It's amazing. And that's the thing. We were talking about the scale of things, and this is what made me think about this first one. You're just talking about it. It was like we would stop at these road stops and looks at things, and I just kept telling Carrie, like, I don't know what to say other than just cuss. It's just like you're so gobsmacked by this, and you're like, that's all I know to do is just to just say cuss words right now. But okay, so please continue.
I need to go on another trip. I'm very trip deficient right now.
Yeah.
I finally got my passport. I need to use it before it expires. Absolutely. Although right now, I guess that's not really an option, is it?
Yeah. True indeed.
I drove back and forth a couple times between here and like Las Vegas and stuff. I helped a friend move out there. Nice. Drove back and forth a couple times. So one of those experiences, I stopped in the middle of the Rocky Mountains to sleep at a pullover. And the rental car had a sunroof, and the positioning was just right that I could look out the sunroof. I could lay back in the driver's seat and look out the sunroof at the stars in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and that was a pretty good slumber right there.
Yeah, no
pretty good mid-trip slumber. And when you start to see the signs at the rest stops for scorpions and rattlesnakes, that's interesting. And
yeah, I thought it was interesting that when we were out in Colorado, all the trash cans are like bear proof. There's all these like bear proof things, and that's one of the things that was just like, what? And then also in Colorado, they're pretty hippy dippy out there, and I mean, not in about the best way possible, but it was like you separated. You had your trash, you had recyclables, and then you had, I think, compost. I think was.
Yeah, they were. You had 3 trash cans. You didn't have 2.
Now. But yeah, I think they had one that was for compost, and then they had a lot of stuff where, like when we were in Denver, it was fun just walking through the city, and they had some waterways, and we'd had a lot of fun just taking a walk through the kind of like the outskirts of the city, and but they had a lot of stuff for like bikers. Biking is a huge thing out there, and so they had some things where only bikes were allowed to go, or where bikes were not allowed to go. You saw a lot more of that than I was used to seeing. And that was another thing that
they're getting some of that stuff here too. With bike trails and stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you're seeing it also just on the road, right? The road is a lot of bike lanes that they're marking on the roads here. So that
some of those are so confusing. It's like suddenly a bike lane out of nowhere, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. Or it's in a different spot than you're normally used to seeing it, and within the lane structure, and you're like, what's happening here?
Yeah, that and roundabouts.
Not used to this. I don't know what to do here.
we also have a big fetish for roundabouts, apparently.
Yeah, we're getting more and more roundabouts. We didn't used to have any roundabouts here.
Yeah, now it's like goddamn.
The first time you approach those, it's like
Pretty soon it's going to be Big Ben, Parliament. Hey, look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. Yeah, we know, Dad. That's what it's starting to feel like, because it's like, especially like we have some of these suburbs in particular are really big fans of these, and it's like you go from a roundabout to a roundabout and to a roundabout and to a roundabout. It's like, what the hell? I don't even know what direction I'm going right now.
Yeah, you have to have at least a semblance of a sense of direction going through those.
Yeah.
You just keep doing figure eights. Damn it. Will this ever end?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not being serious, because it's like if you're in an area that you don't know and it's dark, and you did a 3/4 to a 3/4 to a 2/3 to a 1/4 to a... It's like, what are those instructions like? It sounds like nuts, but... All right, let's lower these things here.
Some of the other things about trips that I took out there. Oh, there was a spontaneous blizzard in the middle of the Rocky Mountains I encountered.
Jeez.
And then it turned to a thick fog where you couldn't see like a foot in front of your car.
That was nuts when we were in San Francisco. The fogs. Man, those fogs are crazy.
Yeah, you ain't never seen that bay fog.
You ain't
seen the bay fog.
I mean, yeah, it's like how people talk about pizza, which is so funny, right? Like, oh, you don't know pizza if you never had our city's pizza. It's like, shut up. Like, there isn't nothing magical about one city that can only make something. I'm sorry.
There's the thing about San Francisco sourdough. The sourdough, it's supposed to be like, it tastes different everywhere you are because it relies on the spores and stuff in the air there, the bacteria and the spores in the air, and supposedly that can have an effect on the taste of it. But also the water in the area. There's lots of places that say, I think Naples says that their pizza, which is supposedly where pizza was born, is in Naples, and they live close to Mount Vesuvius, I think. So they say the water there isn't good for drinking because it's volcanic and it has like a high sulfur content and stuff, but it makes the pizza really good.
The raccoons love it. Oh, okay. Let me see here.
Okay, so what do we have? Voyager 2, we're going to talk about. Okay, so yeah, it looks like its planetary mission lasted 12 years, 1 month, and 12 days, if you want to boil that down. And then so far, its interstellar mission has lasted 30 years and 8 months, 5 days, according to Wikipedia. What's interesting is that I think both of them, both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, used a radioactive power source, and they use that to generate heat, which I think also helps to keep all the stuff functioning properly because space is very cold. But then they use the heat to create the energy. However, they'll shut the systems down in between things that they want to measure, like in between distances, in between planets, whatever. They'll shut a lot of stuff down to try to conserve power. And that's where they encountered some problems with Voyager 2. They lost connection. There was an improper shutdown, and I think it caused a loss of power and some communication problems that didn't execute a turn properly or something. But they were able to get back in contact with it and try to reprogram it a bit, and they got it back online. But of its original dozen or a few dozen instruments, there's only 4 or 5 that are still functioning.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
And that's interesting in the way that they had this thing and it had this certain life cycle, this main mission, and then how they've adapted much further down that line to try to keep it functioning and try to extend its usefulness and explore more with it and do different things on the fly when it's so far away that it can take over a day if you ask it a question for it to respond, for you to get a response.
That's it, yeah. And that is with that information traveling at the speed of light, right?
I'm not sure how they communicate, whether it's like radio waves or if they're commuting with a laser or how
fast do radio waves travel?
Well, is that the same? No,
Computer,
I guess that's different than...
Computer, how fast do radio waves travel compared to the speed of light?
Here's something I found on the web. According to slideshare.net, the wave speed of all electromagnetic waves is the same and equal to the speed of light, which is approximately equal to 300 plus 0.00000 meter per second.
Shows you your O face. Oh, you know what I'm saying. Oh. Oh. I think my computer just orgasmed.
It was a robot orgasm.
Yeah.
Ow.
Please tell me that every day. I think I'll be happy if you tell me that joke every single day of my life.
0.00000. Ow.
You're the one.
Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, just remind everybody to hit that like, share, and subscribes. If robot orgasms are your jam, and why wouldn't they be? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Okay, so they do. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 both use radio signals to communicate with Earth.
And then you did hear the computer say that those waves travel the speed of light.
Radio waves travel the speed of light?
Yeah, that's what it was saying. Electromagnetic.
Yeah, I was
waves.
thinking the difference between sound waves and which doesn't make any sense anyway.
And that's what I started to think. I was like, well, I was assuming it was the speed of light, but it was like, well, but maybe they don't travel. I'm sure that they travel faster than the speed of sound, but that's always funny. The first time that you actually see the difference between the speed of sound, right? Like I can remember,
When you experience it.
Yeah, like I think the first time I experienced it when they were building and one of the houses that we had, and they were building some houses away, and you could actually see the people hammering, and you would see them hammer, but then you would hear them hammer, like afterwards. So he was like, hammer, then hear it, pow, pow.
Or you get that in the mountains when you have the echo too. So you'll get that, and then you'll have it, and then you get the echo as well. So it's like, oh man. And the first way you probably experienced that really, and maybe didn't realize it, was with thunder and lightning.
Yeah, true indeed. There's something, we've been talking about, every once in a while we dip our toes talking kind of on the outskirts of religion and the purpose of things like religion and the purposes of things like, schooling. We've talked about school and about the school system being formed around the time of when we were in wars, and what does that mean about the goal system of the school system, and different things like that. I was having this thought about I think that one of the reasons why we clutch to religion outside of spirituality is, I think that that it is a convenient tool for parents to try to keep their kids out of trouble. And I don't think that can be underestimated. The power that religion's longevity is because of the utility that it has to keep from kids having sex, amongst other things.
Yeah. Or just keep them in line and try to control behavior. Try to say, well, let me give you a sense of reward by saying you'll get to heaven if you're good, and a sense of fear by saying you'll go to hell if you're bad. And
yeah, it's like to get you to act morally, right? There has to be a moral reward or a moral punishment, I guess. So
yeah.
But I was thinking about that, and I don't know that I don't think that it's necessarily means that somebody is trying to propagate something they don't believe in, but I think that the utility that it has and that function makes it easier for people to blindly want to accept it. Because I know that if I was a parent, that would be a tool set that I would probably want to have that I wouldn't have because of my beliefs or lack thereof. But it's like I always say, like when somebody dies, it's when I miss not being religious because I can't tell them I'll pray for you, or things like that, when you don't have those things that you wish you could.
And there's a lot of reasons, I think. That is certainly one of them, I feel. But also just the sense that it's dogma. Like you just pass it on. You believe it's true. You're taught it's true as a child, so you believe it's true. And it becomes so ingrained. A lot of them say, what's Tater saying?
He was talking about changing the category, perhaps. What is he saying? Sucks. That's horrible news. I'm sorry. I might have been.
Not sure. Tater, what are you talking about?
And first, let's back up. So the first about when. Oh yeah, I say that sucks. That's horrible news. I'm sorry. Yeah. But then I mean, I say that too, but or the same thing, like when someone's like says they got cancer or something. It's just like there's times where I find that I don't, where I used to have phrases that I don't, and you start to develop other phrases, but but and then also to your other comment, I've adjusted the stream categories here and there to try to to see that. So we will be sometimes being the just chatting. I've tried the just chatting category. I try podcasts. A lot of times I'll do podcasts and talk shows when we're doing the Tuesday Thursday stream. And then sometimes I've tried it. I think I have it right now. It just says makers and crafting to just try. I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, I'm not really sure that I've gotten any good information on which one's better than the others, but I have been mixing that up a little bit. I'm sorry, Randy. I don't even remember where we're at now.
Oh, just other aspects of why religion is so.
Oh yeah.
It has its benefits. It's like one of those things. Everything with everything's got its benefits and everything's got its drawbacks.
Yeah.
And also everything in moderation. Like, as long as you don't go overboard.
Yeah, church groups can be amazing support.
There's a lot of good there.
A lot of good.
It's when it's taken. There's the opportunity for it to be bad, and it's often taken to that point historically. Very bad.
And then, no matter what anybody's like heart is, it's like there's just inherent dangers when you say I know something, which is something that is impossible for you to know. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we kind of value religion. Religion has this certain spot in our culture that I don't think it's merited. Right? There's a sanctity to religion. And I think it was just because as people wanted to kind of do their own thing that they, America was founded on the freedom of religion, and it tries to institute this separation of church and state that we keep trying to ignore for some reason because people want freedom for their religion, and they want people don't want America to be a non-religious country. They want it to be religious, and they want it to be one specific religion, and that's not, and you try to say something against that, and then it's like somehow you're unpatriotic. And I was like, no, this is actually what America. Peaceful dissent is what America is based.
One of the big things about, remember the big argument and stuff, and how infuriated people were with the concept of removing God from the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe. Isn't that what it was? Yeah. And they were saying, it's removing God from the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm like, it was just added. Yeah. Like it didn't originally have it. It was just recently added.
Yeah.
Like fairly recently.
Here you go. Here you go. Messing with what the forefathers' intents were. That's not how this.
That's not how that was. But a large part of the problems with it is that within a lot of the doctrinization, within those religious texts, they state, don't let anybody tell you any differently. This is the way it is. And if somebody, some of them to the extent that they say, if somebody else comes into your home and tries to talk about a different religion, your job is to kill them, basically.
Yeah.
Something in the Bible alludes to something to that point. Somewhere along the point where it says something about if you disrespect your parents, then you should be forced to watch your children be eaten in front of you or something crazy. I don't remember. You're on fact finding.
That's not to be taken literal, Randy. They mean metaphorical children.
Oh, okay. That part's not supposed to be literal. Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, it was the spirit of the times. You don't understand. Back then, everybody was eating children.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was commonplace. So, yeah, so it was. You need to look at that.
They were just talking about jelly babies.
Yeah, they're talking about
the British snack.
They're talking about dropping the kids off at the pool.
That's a whole different connotation. Maybe they just got to poop real bad.
Real bad.
Call back. There's something else I wanted to mention about Voyager that was good. Oh, okay. So they were talking about with it shutting down and just getting back into contact with it and getting it back on track and stuff. There's also the video got a little hard to follow at this point. It was like they skipped something a little bit, and I think they ended up alluding back to it, but I wasn't quite sure I was getting the full gist of what they were saying. Something with the idea of they want to do some upgrades. So they're going to not be able to communicate with it. I think the point they were saying was that it's good that they got it back on track when they did, because now they can go ahead and do major upgrades on the huge satellite dish, or radio dish rather, in Australia. That will set up a bunch of future missions with new equipment and new capabilities. But that means that we will not be able to give commands to the satellites during that point, or at least to Voyager 2, because that dish is the only one capable of communicating with it, apparently, of sending commands to it. But we will still be receiving communications from it, at least in some form.
That is crazy how they do that. I mean, I got exposed a little bit to some of the stuff that you're talking about with like some of the Mars rovers, right? And watching how they deal with those, and how they, they'll get information one day and then they'll have to figure out how they want to handle this, and then they'll send it some programming, and then the next day it'll execute the program, and then the next day after that they can see the photo results, and it is nuts. And
yeah,
especially
there's still, I can't remember if it was New Horizons or which one it was I was talking about, where they sent one out specifically to reach Pluto, to do a flyby of Pluto. And it was like, these people were staking their entire careers and their entire lives on this moment, which could have failed.
Right, and it was
they had to wait like however many years for it to actually reach the point where it may fail or may succeed. And there was like, it stopped functioning. Like they lost communication with it like right before it got there, and they had to quickly scramble to try to re-communicate with it.
I must have watched the same exact program that you watched, because I think I must have watched that, because that is all sounding very, very familiar. Yeah, and they're all sitting in those round rooms, and it's like they have one of those moments where you see where people want to throw stuff in the air, and I don't think they actually threw stuff in the air, but it was everything but throw stuff in the air. But yeah, that is nuts, because it was like, oh, we're doing this thing. It's going to take 10 years, right? And then there's this part to where we have to wait. We did our part, and then I'll see you guys all in 2 years. It's like, what about the people that died by the time you came back? But that is fascinating. I'm like you,
that they're still, like, it took so many pictures and stuff during this time, but it can only transmit so much data at a time. So
it can't transmit it as fast as it accumulates it.
Yeah, it takes us so long to get the data back that it's still transmitting. It's only transmitted like 30% of the data that it collected from the flyby of Pluto, or something like that. And like every day they're sitting there like reviewing this data as it comes in and being like, oh, look at that. Look at that new thing we haven't seen before. What does this mean?
Yeah, those people were pissed, right? Because they're like, God damn it, when we sent this thing out, Pluto was a goddamn planet. And now you downgraded.
What do you mean it's not a planet?
I mean, those people had to be so pissed. That those people hate Neil deGrasse Tyson.
What is its current terminology? I keep forgetting.
It's a dwarf.
It's like mini planet now or something?
I think it's a dwarf planetoid. A dwarf planetoid, I think, is the terminology. I could be wrong.
In 2020, Pluto retrograde? No, that's not what we... Oh, that's...
Computer, what is Pluto considered?
That's astrology.
Here's what I found on reference.com. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union changed Pluto's classification from a planet to a dwarf planet because the planet has not cleared its orbit of other objects. When a planet clears its orbit, all other objects on the orbital path are either drawn into the planet's gravitational pull or flung away from it and out of the orbit.
Dropping some science.
Interesting. Right there. So what time did it say there?
I thought it said 2006.
Okay, so I think it changed since then, didn't it?
Did they change it again?
They changed it multiple times. Because it was like, it's no longer a planet, now it's a planetoid or something. And they're like, wait, now it's a microplanet.
She said she called it a dwarf planet. That's what she
yeah.
said. And it wouldn't surprise me that they because there's a whole collection of bodies out there, right? There's a, I can't remember, is it the Kuiper belt or whatever? Isn't there the belt of things that are out there with it? I can't remember. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I can't remember which one, because one of them's in between the planets and the other is on the outside of the solar system.
Yeah, there's the
Kuiper belt is a region of the solar system beyond the orbit of Neptune, believed to contain many comets, asteroids, and other small bodies, largely made of ice.
Yeah, then there's just the asteroid belt, which is in between Mars and Jupiter. In which they teach you does not look anything like it does in Empire Strikes Back. Those asteroids are way too close
talking about
together.
there's so much space in between the asteroids that you could fly through it without having to worry about hitting anything. A Taurus-shaped region? Taurus-shaped.
Well, we already didn't. Is that going to be a problem because we just saw that Tater said he was an Aries?
It's spelled a little differently.
Oh.
Okay. So asteroid belt located roughly between the orbits of the planets of Jupiter and Mars. And they're talking about, there's some allusions I've seen to other things, like whether they be microplanets or whatever. They think that based on what they see operating around it, that there may be another undiscovered planetoid of some sort, like within our solar system,
Really?
or just outside of it.
Oh,
Heard allusions to Planet X and different
I've
names
heard of
for different
Planet
things
X
and things.
before.
Yeah. I don't know if any of that stuff is true or not. I can't recall the sources that I saw those things from, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. All right.
Maybe mass consciousness is materializing a new planet in our solar system.
Maybe it's Mandela effect.
Or
can we name
yeah,
it Planet Mandela?
That's what I was...
Planet Mandela. That sounds pretty awesome, right? That's pretty baller.
That does sound like a cool planet.
All right. Let's see here. We've got our wood panels.
What's the new... Sorry, I keep getting...
Coming right at you.
Like, it used to be like Vimeo and stuff, or the quick video clips that people make and send you. It's an app.
Oh, is that AOL Instant Messenger?
Yes, that. No.
Are you talking about
like Vines? But like, what's the new Vines, basically?
I don't know. Yeah, isn't there something that
I can't think what it's called.
Is there something where you take dick pics and it like erases it? Snapchat? Is that what it is?
Is that what Snapchat is? Snapchat is?
Is it Snapchat? One of them, TikTok. One of them, it like
TikTok. Yes, TikTok. Oh God, they're talking about how our generation doesn't understand TikTok. It's just for the younger generation.
Boomer,
and for me, it's true. Like, except my older brother has started using it, and I hate it because, like, you'll click on what they sent you, and it'll just be really quick, and sometimes it shows up as like abbreviated, but then it immediately shows typically the same advertisement one, which is a teaser of another TikTok. And then it'll switch to the next, which is also just a teaser. And you can't do anything with them. It's just to get you to click on that to try to sign up and get the app yourself. But it's so invasive. And they're annoying.
Cock block that TikTok. Most people I follow are older than me. That's funny. Tickety tock. That's why we have Tater on here, so he can represent the youth. He represents our youth element. He's 35. It doesn't matter. He represents our youth element.
Did you do your mental health minute? Did you want to expound on that at all?
Yeah, hold on one second. Actually, let's take a
Submit.
look
No, I
at...
don't want to submit. Go submit yourself.
Wow.
I was trying to get some information. It's like, you have to submit your email address. No, I don't.
What was the philosophical quandary that you had, Randy? Do you remember?
Oh, that was, I mentioned that last time. That was the ambition without hope. Is it possible to have ambition without hope?
Yeah, that was good.
And it
Yep.
doesn't seem that that's the case. And if so, that then means why do these people not have hope? And how do we try to give them hope so that they can hopefully have ambition?
Yeah, that was
in a good way.
That was pretty groovy. I enjoyed that. And then we segmented that into our
shower
Sandman,
top.
our Sandman story
Mr.
illusion.
Sandman,
Mr. Sandman. that comes up in the comic. Let's see here. Yeah, so it was just you have a right to exist. So, as I was discussing, that's just, I was just thinking that, I mentioned to you the other day, it's like, the meaning of life. Maybe that the purpose is that all things that are alive are, that life is the song of the Creator, right? That life is nothing but the music of the great Creator, whatever that Creator is. And all living things just represents notes within the song. And so the only meaning of your life really is for you to chime at that time. It's kind of almost like your life is like a moment in a handbell choir, right? And you're just there to strike that bell one time and this one moment in this song, right? And it's just for you there just to chime. And that's what your life is, that chime, this single moment in the song that is the great Creator's song of life. And that's all that you need to do. You just need to be there and just chime at that moment. And I think that when we look at our lives, we look so small scale, and as we talk about all these things, the great spaces between the planets and the stars, we talk about the amazing space that exists between atoms, and it's like, what does it all mean, And I don't know that it's supposed to mean anything. It's just, life is just to live, and that's what your obligation is you didn't ask to be here, but you are, depending on, unless you did ask, and then you can quite kindly disregard what I said if this doesn't apply to you. But yeah, I think that that's what it comes down to, is that you just have to be. And I try to, sometimes when I do meditation, I try to, that's a thought that I'll visit sometimes. It's just that you don't, all that your obligation is just to be here right now. That's what your obligation is. So I don't know, you can feel free to jump off from there if you wish. That was kind of the thought that I had.
Me or the listeners?
Either. The listeners tend to be pretty quiet, so I figured probably you.
Yeah. My point was that, like, you immediately have to, I mean, that certainly has its place and it's part of the equation, but then you get societal stuff into, like, are you going to be part of society? Like, I mean, that if you want to be part of society, then that you do have some responsibilities within that structure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just a leech on the system.
Yeah. And I'm happy to entertain that line of questioning, Your Honor. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I guess I think that as we go into semantics here, to me, I feel that there's a difference between responsibility and obligation, and maybe that's not true, but that's I think that I see a subtle. That I'm drawing a subtle differentiation, perhaps, between responsibilities and obligations.
Here's an interesting way to look at it. If someone is very up and very driven and is a part of working society and everything and strives to do all this stuff, but while they're doing that, they're consuming energy and resources. And then when they die, they have their body not cremated, they have their body embalmed and put into a casket inside a vault in the ground, taking up space. And so they've just spent their entire life consuming. They've been a productive member of society, but as far as biologically and environmentally speaking, they've just consumed and never returned. So put that up against somebody who lives as a hermit and grows their own food and lives in an environmentally friendly way, and gives back and makes sure to maintain the natural cycle of life, death, rebirth as far as it returns to every biological thing. And then when they die, they return to the soil naturally and give back the nutrients of their body back to the soil to continue the cycle. Whose life is more valuable?
Mine.
Who made a better impact?
Me. Yeah, I mean,
just as a thought exercise.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is I think it'd be funny if God.
That's an interesting.
I think in mine, like my version, God says neither, or both.
Neither. You mean neither is important, or neither is more important than the other, or
neither is more important than the other?
Yeah,
because
I think
it's like that fallacy that we talk about, like, you know, the Earth. The Earth isn't in danger. Humans are in danger. The Earth is fine. The Earth will be even better once it gets our dumb ass off of it. But it'll last way beyond we do. Even after the sun scorches us, the Earth will still be here. The Earth is fine. We're not doing this for the Earth. We're doing it for humans.
But like as far as a societal impact goes, our societal trainings say that if you're not part of society, if you're not working and inputting into society, then you're a drain on it, and you're worthless. You're worse than worthless because you're draining on the system and not giving anything to it. Whereas they may look at somebody who's like a hermit and not participating in the system as a worthless human being because they're not, and they don't understand their take on it. Where somebody else might be like, no, dude, you're just being this consumer ant in the machine. You're not doing anything worthwhile. Like when you die, none of this is going to matter of what you've done here, and you've stressed yourself out so much and stuff. And they've just lived their life that way and ended up making it a healthier, their impact has been a much healthier impact for future generations environmentally.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot to be said there, and it's just like how society views those aspects and how people within society view the other side of that aspect. And
well, it's like, you know, like, yeah, I think that I've thought about this thing before. I was watching this show, I think it was on Nat Geo for a while, and it was about some lumberjack, or not some lumberjack, but some Grizzly Adams.
I'm a lumberjack, and I don't care.
Dude that, you know, lived off the grid, right? He lived in a tree. He lived in a hollow tree. Mm-hmm. And lived with sprites and fairies, I think, and ate mushrooms and stuff like that. And the sprites and fairy parts might have been inaccurate. Do your own fact finding.
What is this you're talking about?
There was some show, and I don't know. It was the legend of Grizzly Adams or something.
I told you. I watched the first season of that, I think. Okay.
And it's like,
guy lives in the one of the national forests in Washington State, I think. Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, is this guy wrong? Is he allowed to do that, right? Is he morally wrong what he does? Because, you know, he's not really contributing to society in the way that you're talking about it, right? He's not paying taxes. And but yet, you know, I think that guy has he's not doing anything illegal, right? So he has a legitimate way to try to seek his own happiness, right? The pursuit of happiness. He's not doing anything illegal. But, you know, people talk about like voting, and do you have a right to vote, you know? And is that a civil obligation? Are you a bad person because you do or do not vote, you know?
Yeah, if you're not a taxpayer, do you have a right to vote?
Yeah, or that. But, you know, if you don't vote, then, you know, you're a bad person. And you know, is that guy a bad person because he doesn't vote? Or is it because he chooses to disengage, that he's like, you know, that's part of what you're doing. That's not part of what I'm doing. I'm happy to exist on the fringes of whatever it is that you guys create. But, you know, I don't want to necessarily be a part of your deal. And if everybody does that, then society collapses, I suppose. But
Now, with him in particular, it's a little different because he did live in society. He was a very productive member. I think he was in the military. He was an engineer.
well,
So he
I
did
didn't
his
think
time.
I didn't
And
think
then
he was Lucan the feral wolf boy. I didn't think he got raised by wolves.
but there are people who do spend the majority of their life, if not their entire life.
Well, but he
kind of
does.
secluded
I
in
mean,
that way.
he doesn't just go. And this isn't just like Survivor, man. I mean, that guy just lives in the woods, right, 24/7. He
Yeah,
he
but
doesn't have a
supposedly
house.
anyway. There's some allusions to maybe it wasn't the case, really.
Okay.
But yes,
And I do remember
the
like him. He
premise
came
at
in.
least is that he did.
Yeah, I remember him coming into town once, and then he was friends with the veterinarian,
Mhm.
and she made him chocolate cookies and things like that. So he had relationships with some other people. But my understanding was that he didn't have a house payment, and that he
Right.
didn't live in a cardboard box, and
The
that
premise was that he lived in the woods in like a cave kind of situation or whatever structure he created through natural resources.
Yeah.
And he'd progressed to that point. At one point, he started off with like a yurt or something, and then moved to a more primitive structure.
And wasn't he also kind of?
He had caches throughout with different like seasonal gear and stuff to help him survive.
Yeah. Yeah. Lives in a van down by the river. Thank you for your participation. Much appreciated.
He'd do his workout by lifting rocks on the beach and to stay in shape, and he'd trade things. He made, I forget what he was after. He needed something,
He was a
so he traded one of his friends for that.
Coat. Oh, sorry.
There's like this crazy cool art doctor. He was like a medical doctor, but he was also an artist, and he retired and just had this cool like house that he built that was very art inspired, and so he would come to him if he had any health concerns or anything, and they'd kind of trade services in a way. And
yeah, because he had like some crazy log cabin, like out in the middle of nowhere, right? Some like super cool, like.
Yeah, the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, the doctor. I did remember that he had somebody that he was like friends with that he would go to every now and again, and it was an interesting show. But I do think about him as a model, right? Because there are people who are like this, right? There's people who live off the grid, one way or the other, and it's like, what is their obligation? What is their obligation? And it's like, I don't know.
How have the obligations of an American citizen changed over the course of the life of America? What was the original American citizen's obligation to America as opposed to what it is now?
Yeah, because
you had like the Homesteader Act and stuff, where it's like, hey, you just pay $12 or whatever it is, and or maybe even free if you go claim this land. It belonged to a tribe beforehand. We killed them all off, but if you go claim this land, then it's yours. Did they have to pay taxes? I don't think that they did. I'm not sure. And that part of the reason why America was founded by some people was to escape taxation.
Hey, no taxation without representation. I'm very strongly.
What does it mean to be a part of society, and what do you need to do in order to deserve to have some say in that society?
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting, and then I think this ties back to when we were talking about an MMORPG, right? That, and if you used it as an experimentation model for different types of governments or civil structures, and it's like if you were to if you want to just come in and you don't want to clean the streets and things like that, if the system can function without that, fine, right? But the people that are willing to do those things, that there is some bennies for them. And what are those benefits? And especially, non-monetary benefits, non-direct monetary benefits.
Yeah.
And
there's been multiple times within our society where we have welcomed immigration, and then further down the line have decided that immigration is a bad thing and turned against it and wanted to kick people out.
Yes.
That's happened multiple times within American civilization.
Right.
part of that is like we'll get to the point where our workforce and everything will advance, and then suddenly what? Suddenly nobody now wants to pick up trash. So no one wants to do what's considered societally to be a menial, lower task. So then you get immigration in, and they come in and they're willing to take those jobs on and work hard at those jobs to try to better themselves or whatever, to try to get live the American dream, as it were. And then you get the people saying, oh, now these people are coming in, they're stealing all our jobs. Well, they came in here because there was a need for them. Like, there was a demand for them.
Well,
now suddenly it's a bad thing.
Give us you're tired and you're weary and you're...
Yeah.
But don't... Oh, wait a minute. These are coming from other places? Well, we didn't mean that.
So apparently there's been several instances where this has been a cycle of, oh yeah, come on. Oh no, get the fuck out.
Yeah. It is, which, in fairness, is...
we need you. Oh, we don't want you.
Yeah.
You're right. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Which is it?
Which, in fairness, it is a complicated situation, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
open borders, I don't think is probably a great idea for any country.
I mean, the concept of terrorism makes it even more difficult. But
yeah, and it's just, well, the thing is too is that you have, if you get if everybody else has closed borders and you have open borders, and all these other bad things happen all these other places, and so you just start taking on people from all these other places, I could see where that could be a problem. It could be problematic.
And speaking, I mean, from the COVID sense, from a biological sense, you need a viral sense. You need to have the ability to close things down and keep things from spreading in that sense as well.
But I do think that. So I believe that immigration probably needs to have some sort of legalization process to some degree, and so on and so forth. But when immigrants are forced to pass tests that high school seniors can't pass, I don't know. That's not what I'm trying to advocate, but I don't know.
Yeah, that no native-born American citizen can pass, but
yeah.
If you're not in 5th grade, then you're not going to remember any of that stuff. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. I think it was a Adam Ruins Everything episode where he was talking about the immigration system and how broken it is with the courts, immigration courts, and there was actually an allusion to judges maybe getting like bonuses and stuff for deporting people. And like they're so overworked, and the system is so messed up that somebody who should technically probably be allowed to be here legally would be deported incorrectly, and there'd be like no recourse or no. Maybe there's supposed to be a recourse there, but it's just such a broken system that realistically there's no recourse.
Yeah.
Because the process is so difficult, or it takes so long to get anything done that nobody can actually accomplish it. It was just rife with problems.
It feels like this is what it feels like to me. It feels to me like society is code, is computer code, right? And so all this structure that we have, all this government, all this bureaucracy, all this red tape, all this process, it's computer code. And we don't ever just wipe out that code and start with a new code, right? We don't have Windows 95 and now we're using a whole new operating system. We're just this code that we just keep building on top of and building on top of and building on top of. And we've got all this faulty code, right? We've got all these loops, programmatic loops, and just dead ends where the program data just flows and stops, and there's no real way to revise the code. There's no real good way to, people are trying to do it here and there, and so some people are within their own little subroutines are trying to do some things, but on a much larger scale than the subroutines. There's just all this.
I think the Matrix is a good and deliberate example of that, in that they did experience it. The Matrix was rebooted how many times? There were so many different iterations of the Matrix because they kept getting to a point and they're like, hey, I'm not happy with it. What it is, it needs to be something else. And like, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Right. And then it just keeps doing the same thing, ends up happening over and over again.
And let me take this opportunity to plug The Good Place on Netflix. Really good for if you enjoy any type of esoteric sort of thinking about the afterlife or anything like that and are willing to engage in it in a humorous way, but thoughtful way. The Good Place is really interesting.
Is that was it Ted Danson and
Ted Danson? And
yeah, I think I saw the
Veronica
first
Mars.
season of
that. And I think I'm in the third season now, and it's like each season kind of has its own take, but I'm really been enjoying it. That's really good stuff. Okay, so we are going to paint these. I'm going to make this pretty watery so that it gets all up in the cracks and then the crevices. And
Kristen Bell.
Yeah, Kristen Bell. Yeah, she does a really nice job. All the people that are in it actually, I really enjoy the cast. My favorite is Janet, who is like a program, but her interface looks like a human. And it's like this one guy, he's like a doofus. And he's like, "Oh man, you're a hot chick. Thank you, still not a chick." And she just always keeps saying, "Thank you, not a chick, not a human. Thank you." And at one point, her program gets messed up, and she's like, "Thank you, not a chick. Also, not a Janet." Yeah, what the fork. Yeah. It's good stuff. I didn't think I was going to like it. I really, really, really enjoy it.
What if they automatically replace curse words with non-curse words? Is that
and that's why,
so she's trying to curse all the time, and it comes out like random stuff like that.
Yeah, what the fork.
What else? There was something else I was going to say about. Oh, damn it. Episode of Stargate Atlantis where they did that sort of thing. Nerd. They thought it was a game, but it wasn't. Shepard and I think it was Shepard and the scientist guy that's kind of an asshole.
Nerd.
Rodney. Were basically thought they were playing a game, like a population game and stuff. They're like had their civilizations, and they were trying to advance their civilization and then warring with the other one for resources or whatever. And it turned out that they were really directing actual civilizations on a planet.
So Ender's Game.
But the damage that they wrought from that experience was palpable. But that goes along with your MMORPG societal experimentation.
Yeah, so back to that though. It's like how does that work, right? How does
Well, okay, so it's the devil, right? Like nobody's ever going to be like, okay, let's just stop everything and reboot this entire stuff. Like Let's just start from fresh, because everybody's going to be like, no. There's only too many people that can't agree. They want their way, not the other person's way. Trying to get a consensus for something like that and actually put it into place and, okay, let's stop what we're doing here and try something totally different is...
But so let's see that we're not saying it as a government. Let's take it back up. Let's just look at it from the MMORPG. So from the MMORPG perspective, you're making a large scale, you're planning on there being hundreds of thousands of people in this game, right? And so you're going to try to set it up, right? And so just looking at it as an MMORPG, that, let's say that you wanted to come up with some system of voting rights for the users. How would you go about structuring that?
Well, now they kind of do that through polls. Some developers and stuff will, listen to their users and create polls for things that we're going to vote on, or take ideas from them on, where the game's going next.
What I'm saying, if you wanted to let the MMORPG create a sort of self-governing body, right? So I'm not talking about... So
you want the players to create it themselves?
Yeah. Well, not to create them themselves, but within the structure of the game, right? That there's parameters that can be, say, levers and switches that can be, set.
Okay. So just thinking about this from a game perspective and not its repercussions on society, real life society. I mean, you could do it with a preset. Obviously, you couldn't. I don't think you could cover all the bases, but you could program a certain set and say, okay, as a society, as a group of individuals, you're all going to all going to fill out this survey or whatever. You're going to be presented with choices that are going to determine how you want this to go, and then you see how that plays out. Like they'll choose, okay, I want this to be the governing, and then you just go with the majority vote, because, I mean, how else are you going to do it, really?
So no representation, just that there is.
Everybody gets a vote. Each vote is counted the same, but the majority rules.
Okay.
So meaning that you're presented with an option, and whatever the majority of the people say they want it to be, that's what it is. So if 51% say, okay, let's go with option A, then that's what it's going to be.
What if you had a game and it's an MMORPG, right? And you know that people, no matter whatever game you're going to create, people are going to grieve, right? And so let's say that we wanted to give our MMORPG... Grief? Yeah. And you understand what I'm saying by that, I'm assuming, right?
Cause problems.
Yeah, just intentionally. Yeah. So you wanted to allow the MMORPG the means to be able to self-govern itself to help deal with grievers. So they could deal with grievers' characters however they choose as a body to do so.
You need to explain exactly what you mean by it. So we have a frame of reference for exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. What part am I losing you on?
By grievers or griefers.
Okay. So so you have
specific type of actions.
So let's say you have a World of Warcraft type of game, right? And you have people who, let's say, are just going to go around you the whole time, shouting racial slurs.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you're getting into different stuff here too, because it's like, what do we do? Is bullying an issue that we're going to police?
Okay, well,
are we going to offer censorship to do that?
Back it up. So this is not, we're getting off rails. So the only part is, I don't care what the grief is. The point of it is that whatever you end up deeming grief is, that's on you, right? People, that's part of the system, right? You have to figure out what grief is. Who gets to decide? Who are the grievers? What is grief? All that stuff. That's all part and parcel of this, right? But so let's say that's the ability that we want people. That's what the people get to decide. The people get to decide on how grievers are handled in game. That's the ability that citizens get. This is what citizens get to vote on. And this is what the government gets structured around, right? How do you go about doing that? Say, okay, and now go. That's your goal. How do we make that happen? How can we create a system in which, in an MMORPG, where the users are able to self-govern grievers, what they deem as grievers?
Well, there has to be a mechanism in place where they be able to vote on what they what they have to be able to define that for themselves. So they have to be able to have that definition so they can then act on that definition. And then they have to decide on what they want the actions to be once they decide what the definition is for them.
So how does that happen?
So there'd be like polling, I guess.
Well, who
It has to be
creates
built
the
into the
polls?
programming. If you don't want any programming in place, this is just an totally open world. Programming is the only programming exists is that this is a totally open world. So there's no control programming set. It's only societally run within the game.
I mean, I'm saying that within the respect that you have a game, and within the rule set of the game, that that the game creators say that the games creators say that we're not going to handle grieving. You're going to handle grieving, right? So if there's a certain tool set that you said that you would need to be able to do that, then that's what you're telling me. Hey, we would need some way to be able to. There would need to be a tool set that allowed for polling and blah 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 blah. Right? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's a can do. But the question is then, who creates the polls?
and that's where it gets into. So you're saying there's no programming to allow for this. It's totally societal driven. So it has to be manually done. Whatever form this takes, it has to be manually done by the players.
No, let's say
within the game.
The players can the tool set can be there, but okay, just because you have a tool set that allows you to have a poll, who gets to decide what the poll is? Who gets to ask those questions?
Everybody would have to be able to submit things to be polled upon, or so everybody gets to submit something to be polled upon.
To have an elected committee?
What?
Do we have to have an elected committee to be able to decide who's on the elected committee?
No elected committees. I mean, that's one option, but my sense was that you were trying to avoid that and go toward you were trying to find a better solution than the problems that are inherent within an elected body, because that's what we have now. So my understanding was that you were trying to find something better, a different way.
I mean, but I don't know what a better way is. I don't know.
I mean, if you're just going to create an elected body, then all you've done is mirror what we already have. So.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we have a bipartisan system. I think that you could have an elected body that's not a bipartisan system. That maybe is a more optimal way. So I don't know that. I'm not saying that voting and electing and those things are bad. I think that we have a broken system, and so I'm just saying, if we were going to try to, I mean, do you think that voting is the best way to go? Do you think or what do you think would help promote a more, for the purposes here that, and again, we're trying to just limit the goal. We're narrowing the vision of what success looks like here, just so we can have a more palpable conversation to make it a little easier for us to not get caught in the weeds on something. So we've taken a smaller goal set of grievers, right? That's the task that the citizens within this MMORPG are allowed to try to self-regulate. That is the only thing that the intention is, to allow them to be able to self-regulate how they handle grievers, and how you would actually go about doing that from scratch. Where that's the mental experiment. And so you would, so one would be that, you're suggesting that everybody could vote on what it is to, I mean, I guess if that's the goal, right? If that's the goal, then you could say that you would need to have to define, I guess, the goal. But even then, so like if you said everybody vote, you would have to have somebody review all of the answers of what griefing is. You'd have to have somebody define what grief is. And how do you do that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to define definitively what is in place system-wise, what is in place programmatically, what the developers have put in place program-wise as tools, and the way the things had to be done.
Well, I mean,
because it is a gaming platform. Like there's,
right, but
it is a computer program.
Yeah, I mean, it is a gaming platform. It is a computer program. So, but I could say, you tell me the tools that you need. I'm not going to tell you what tools, and you figure out how to use those tools. You tell me what tools you would need.
Okay, so if they say we need an easier way to vote, then the developers will create a voting platform, however they describe it, in the way that they want to be for them. So, I mean, you can either, if you wanted to go the manual route, and you could have players do that, but then you're relying upon individual players to be honest and count the votes and stuff. So to get away from problems with that, just in how many votes that is and one person having to do that, you want to make that an automated process. In this scenario, you should be able to avoid hacking being a problem, because it will be the developers that are handling this function, and nobody should be able to hack that system in this particular case. So you still have to have the society decide on what it is to them, what griefing is to them. And then once they have a definition of that, then they can decide on what they want the punishments, quote unquote, to be for that. And, they could set up different levels and stuff. And I think that they would probably do that through polling. And they create those polls themselves. They request from the dev any program-wide stuff to make these polls easier that they need to implement those things. So what are different ways? I mean, you could have pop-ups in the game. You could have... I think it definitely has to be something within the game. Like, I don't think you would want, like, the users to be emailed outside of the game and do it that way. Because then you don't know for sure. It has to be something that you do when you're on your character within game, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Because especially if we wanted it to be a model, I mean, there is no analog to that in the real world, right? Of that, let me leave the real world and go do emailing, right? So yeah, I agree.
You could create a polling station, or like if you had a home base, then there's a poll crystal that you you touch the poll crystal, the societal crystal in your home base, and that allows you to access information, news about past polls and stuff, and upcoming polls that you can vote on issues for, and vote on current polls and deal with it that way.
So, I mean, I think that the first thing, and we can glance over it if we need to, but you talk about voter security, right? And it's like that's a real issue, right? And it's an issue in a way that I never thought that I would really think about. Because you're like, it's funny, you're like, well, you don't have to worry about that because of the developers, right? The developers got that taken care of. And it's like, I used to feel that same way about voting now, but I don't feel that way about voting now, right? It's like, oh, well, there should be no way that Russia is going to be able to hack America's voting.
Yeah, it's still dependent upon stuff. It's still dependent upon the idea that none of the users within the game know one of the developers, or one of the developers can just be like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just going to play God here and do what I want.
Yeah. And so those could be, those might end up being minutia that needs to be examined. And I think that at this point, we'll take it as, I mean, you'd have to assume that you have the means to vote with some confidence, right? Is I think what we want a way that users could vote, but
okay, so you got multiple aspects to the problem. You've got the ideal of what you think, like, these are the solutions, these are the things we put in place, here's how we put them in place, but then you also have to consider the possible drawbacks. How could this fail? And that is definitely one of the concerns is, well, you assume, you hope that this is a secure system because, it's just the developers and they're outside of the system, whatever. They're not going to be affected by hacking and stuff, except that the way it could fail is that maybe they are. Maybe they are susceptible. Maybe one of the players does know. Maybe one of the developers just decides to play God, like I said, and do their own thing and fuck with the system or whatever. So that's a possible failure point.
Yeah, that's the thing right now. It's just accountability, right? It just feels like there's no real accountability in the world. I don't know that I have any faith of any real accountability. And
Things are really crazy right now. Not to go political, but like when you have a president that denies that he said something and tries to play it off like he never said that, and that's reality to him. No, I didn't say that. I have this video that shows you clearly saying
No.
I didn't say that.
that was me.
And that's your president? That's the high and
It wasn't me.
that's supposedly the most important or the most powerful person in the world. Yeah, that doesn't give you a sense of security or any sense that there can be any sense in anything.
Doesn't give you any warm fuzzies.
No. So instead, let's play a game. Let's play some Rocket League.
So talking about Rocket League, when do you think that you're going to be
Yes.
available to
Excuse me.
play some?
Tonight.
Tater, are you with us? Are you available this evening to perhaps engage in some of the Rocket Soccer? All right. Wanted to take a progress shot here before I drop paint all over myself. Yeah. Yeah, and again, I appreciate you you going down this thought experiment with me. I think there's more to be, if you're willing, there's more to be mined out of this conversation, this thought experiment. I'd like to continue thinking more about it because I think that if I guess some of the interesting aspects is like, I think about if you had an MMORPG and it self-governed against grievers, could you end up having some sort of bounty system, right? Where people could hunt down grievers and could do stuff to them, or, you know what I mean? Just that kind of concept, just I find interesting.
Yeah, and that's what, with our system we set up, if that's what they vote that they want to do, then that's certainly an option.
Yeah, that's kind of funny to think about. And but yeah, with the
So
voting,
then, I mean, that opens a whole other thing. You're going to have people harboring them, trying to hide them, trying to help them hide, and from the bounty
and then
collectors. So you're going to have people spying and sabotaging situations and traitors. And
yeah, you end up creating a
you just broke your perfect society.
broken. All right, first iteration already failed. Throw it in the trash.
Reboot.
Reboot.
Reboot the Matrix.
Reboot the Matrix.
Who's the next Neo?
That's right. Yeah, you're the one, but you're 1.756325. Still the one, but
The 110th iteration of the one.
You're more of a one rather than the one. Get this initial coat in.
You're 0.0000001 point. Oh.
So Tater said he was going to have a hot and steamy solo session. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to interrupt his masturbatory rocket car session? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how you sock it when you rock it, but
play Borderlands 2. I'm up for that as well. Whatever.
Yeah. Or we could just do
I don't want to
Borderlands.
interfere
We could just do Borderlands. I'm not trying to.
With your happy fun rocket car times.
That's right. What you do in the garage? Don't leave it up to the internet to pick your fate. That's how you get Boat's name, Bodie McBoatface. Good times, good times.
Oh, that's an interesting iteration of the online society too, is to have an AI random generate your lols.
Say that again. Random generate your walls.
Lols.
Oh,
lols.
Your sugar walls.
Your societal lols. Not walls. Lols.
Yeah, that's true.
LOL.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? If you had, because you'll have different like servers. So you had the same MMORPG, but different servers had different rule sets.
I don't know what the laws are on that server. Ooh.
I just lost your mic a little bit, but yeah, I just lost your mic, Randy. Let me. You went real soft on me, but it could be me. Let me make sure. Give me 1 second. Oh, Randy's dropping off and coming back in. Oh, there'll be a rock.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. I don't know.
Okay. That would be interesting if you got different servers with different laws and you switch servers and you don't know what the laws are and you have to figure it out. That's crazy.
Well, that would be crazy.
As a play, an element of play there.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I was thinking more though, like, when you're on your server, but then you could see how, examine how successful those different experimentations are, right? Because it's not just that you just you're comparing EverQuest to World of Warcraft, so you're comparing somewhat apples to oranges, but you could be comparing, Granny Smith stuff.
And then if you take into if you add AI into the situation and machine learning and stuff and implement that into the development package and sorry, hold on, I'm hearing something. I need to check out what the noise was.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
So if you implemented like AI and machine learning and stuff, and let it.
Yeah, if you had an AI that you could trust, right? So let's say that,
can you? Maybe at some point the AI decided that it wanted to.
I don't trust the AI. I don't trust the AI. But let's say that you could. Let's say that was a truth that we could somehow, that there was a way that we believe that the AI could be unfaltered, right? And so you kind of have this benevolent monarch AI. That would be optimal. But I don't.
Yeah, I think for the thought exercise, for it to progress, I think we need to have that assumption. We have to have the fantasy and the hope that the AI is I don't know if benevolent is the right word, but that it will not just throw it, that it adheres to the rules.
Yeah,
like it won't just go off and do its own thing.
Right.
That it can't be hacked, but also that it won't make its own choices to decide to throw things
it won't
into
lie.
A chaos. It is trying to find the best system. It is trying to find order. It is telling the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I like these. These are building like laws of robotics here. This is the kind of conversation I'm looking for. It's because so it's like the AI, the overlord AI. It needs to not be able to lie, right? And it.
Yeah, it can't decide that it's just going to solve the world's problems by killing all the players.
Right. The AI doesn't act is not an acting agent. It's only a reporting agent. For this purpose, right? The AI is our AI is just.
We hadn't defined that because I had mentioned it as like trying to as it developing the laws and stuff and trying.
That's true.
Making adjustments.
Yeah. But at least for, I guess, this voting aspect, right? There needs to be a repository where data can get put into that can't be tampered with and could be freely reported on with transparency. And if you have that, then if you have those means, then we can create some sort of voting mechanism with confidence. So I think that's our first thing, is that we're with this thought experiment, for this version, we're accepting that we have an AI which can act as a transparent and honest repository of data. Ooh, look at that freeze frame that we got there.
I guess no matter what you do, you have to have at some point, you have to have some level of hope that things are being done appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, or you have to assume that they're never going to be done appropriately and have its proper checks and balances, which is probably more accurate, right? That there's never going to be. You can never count. You can never count on the honesty of strangers.
The more complex you make the system, the more failure points there are, potentially. Yeah. The more potential failure points there are.
Agreed.
So ideally in engineering, the simplest solution is the best solution.
Agreed.
Because there's less failure points, less things that can go
Sure,
wrong.
Yeah.
And it uses the least amount of energy and whatever. You don't want unnecessary complexity, because that will just cause problems.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think that's this is something hopefully that we'll pick back up here. I've got my initial coats here, just hitting the edges of these, and I'll let these dry, and then these will get dry brushed. At least one color, maybe two. And
are these part of the flooring for your pirate ship?
It's just flooring in general, but I think that these could be used in particular. I can easily envision these as being
modular.
The decks, yeah. If I needed to say, okay, we're on the underdeck, this right here could easily represent, a floor.
I'm gonna go swab the underdeck.
Yeah. I don't know what deck it is, but it ain't the poop deck. I'm going to tell you.
What is the poop deck? Do we want to know the answer to that question?
I don't know, but
I think I knew this before, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm gonna swab the poop deck.
Poop. Noun. Poop deck. The aftermost and highest deck of a ship, especially in a sailing ship, where it typically forms the roof of a cabin in the stern.
I think that if I was going to design the poop
deck... So it's
deck,
where the captain goes to do his poop.
Yeah. Well, isn't that is accurate, right? It starts at the top and it goes downhill from there.
Originating from the Latin term for a vessel's stern side, pupus. The poop deck is located on the vessel's stern. So there you go. It originates from Latin word for...
There you go. Poopus schmoopus. Alrighty.
Used by vessels commanding superiors to observe the work and navigational proceedings. So the poop does roll downhill.
That's right. Truer words and ne'er best spoken. Alright. So let's like I said, we went watery with this just so that it can help get those paint into the nooks and the crannies. There'll be some dry brushing that goes on these afterwards, and then the ink when the ink wash, it'll set in those nooks and the crannies and the nail holes, and it'll really start to pop. And then we'll take a look to see whether or not it needs a final dry brush or not. I think
popping like a plosive.
Yeah, I think this is at 2:40. So, Randy, thanks for spending some extra time with me today. Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, man.
And
good times.
I think this is where we will call it. We had some success with our D&D session, and hopefully we can try to get you in the next session or so, Randy. So I will take a look at. Do you have any questions on any of the D&D stuff?
Yeah, I was interested in going over that with you and maybe doing a recap of the characters and how and that story surrounding them, so we can start to create my character.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully, with maybe in the next week, we'll spend some time offline working on that, so we can do that at your
Cool.
leisure. And yeah, so that's cool. So we'll get that, and I know people are looking forward to getting you in to the game. And I appreciated that you've been hopping on and just participating in chat. That's been awesome. I really do
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
that. And
Always a good time.
yeah, and I've been pretty pleased with how, I mean, it's no small effort to do a remote miniature based D&D game for your friends. I'm pretty proud that
Yeah, no doubt. You've been doing really well.
we're making it work pretty good. So I've been really happy with it. Really pleased with our efforts there. So I think that's pretty groovy. Yeah. Yes.
DMing and setting everything up in the camera angles and following chat, and you've been handling it very well.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, and troubleshooting when people's roles aren't working, and it's a lot. And then we're trying to bring in what I really like though with the D&D stuff, the D&D Beyond, is it really is allowing us to make it a more nuanced and complicated, not in a bad way, but a more allowing us to have a more complex, not complicated, but a more complex rule set and a more nuanced and varied rule set. Without it really increasing my cognitive load. If anything, it might be kind of decreasing it some. So that's really cool. That's been really fun. And it seems to be getting a really good response from everybody. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. So we'll work on that. And we'll get some Rocket League. We'll try to get some Rocket League. Oh, I wanted to show you. I'll go ahead and pull this up here in closing. We can. There was some animated GIFs that Tater had shared in Discord, Randy, and I don't know if you got a chance to see them or not.
Animated peanut butter?
Yeah. Choosy mothers choose gifts.
Tasty.
Let me see here. I'm gonna pull it up. I think it was in the general channel. Yeah. So let me.
Oh, I made some coffee chocolate chip ice cream. That was tasty. Nom, 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 nom.
Say the name of that.
Good
again.
stuff. Coffee chocolate chip ice cream. Just coffee ice cream with chocolate chips.
That sounds really good.
This is good stuff.
Still I'm trying to copy.
What are you doing?
I'm copying and pasting these links that
Oh, gotcha.
Tater had shared regarding the rocket smocket. I want to be able to. These are really cool, I thought. Ways of. Okay. Let me switch this. So I'll switch it here so you can see. So they did these animated GIFs on explaining like some positional play here of Rocket League. And then you can see.
You're very light on Twitch.
Oh, my audio. Yeah, I'll switch my microphone. There, that should help. Give me a second here. Is that better? So can you see the animated GIF now on the what I'm sharing here, or at least?
Yes, I can see it.
So basically, it's talking about in the 3-man game about how you do the cycling, right? And let's see here. We'll wait for it to get to the beginning of the loop here. I don't know if I can. Okay, so it's saying, yeah, you've got 1 and 2 here, right? So 2 covers the goal and it covers it from the back post, which is interesting because I often would try to cover it from this post. So it's saying if the ball's coming down and around here, that if you're defending, you should be defending from this side. And if we continue, that it's this person's ball is to challenge the ball and slash the opponent. And if we continue, that when 3 comes back into play, there are several options or actions available to him. And so here comes 3. The first and top priority for 3 is to support 2. So it's to support basically the person who's currently defending goal, and move into that position when 2 goes for a save or a challenge. So the idea is that this person's primary focus is just to replace 2. That's his first and top priority. If there's time and opportunity, 3 can make a wide rotation, come down here and pick up boost, and part of his move to replace 2. Alternately, 3 can bump or demolish some opposing players that are waiting for a pass. If 1 gets a good challenge and clear, then 3 can quickly transition back to offense and support the ball. But remember that it's 3's main responsibility is to support 2, and that comes before boost and demos. Any thoughts? So it's saying 1 challenges the ball, 2 covers from the back post. When 3rd player comes in, his primary job is to replace 2 when he has to come out for a save. But that if there's time, he could get boost or he could demolish somebody, but that the primary thing is for him to support. And if 1 is successful in his challenge of the ball, then instead what 3 does is to pursue. You still with me, Shadows? Shadows, are you with me? Shadows, can you hear me? Well, seems as if we lost Shadows. We'll see if he hops back on. That was him hopping off. Welcome back.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, everything stopped. I got network errors.
Ooh, ouchie. So did any of that make any sense or find any value in any of the... Did you catch actually what I said? About the 3-man cycle? Did I just lose you again? Gosh darn it. Well,
start having fun again, kind of thing.
Okay, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you.
You couldn't hear any of that?
I can hear you now, but yeah, I didn't hear anything you said. I asked, did this make sense? Did you catch any of it? And I didn't hear your response to that at all.
Yeah, it looks like something I just need to ingest and get used to playing with for a while. Because the initial fear is that it's mechanical and will take away some of the fun of the game. But hopefully it's just something you have to get used to and play with until you get comfortable with it and then start having fun again, kind of thing.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all what it does is it just kind of lets you know and anticipate what each other is going to be able to do. So, like, like
Yeah.
instead of like, do I need to stay in goal or can I come out and challenge the ball? It's like, well, my primary responsibility is come out and challenge the ball. And you always are going to be doing the thing that you think you need to do in that particular moment. This is just generalities, right? In general, this is the way that we're going to try to handle this. And so it's just kind of a way for you to be able to unspokenly communicate with the different players. And then if you do this and you're like, this doesn't work for me, then it's just a starting point, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there was another one here that
it's just that initial information. Like, this looks like, it's a thing like you got to follow, so you have to ingest it so you understand it fully, and then go from there.
And I've talked with Tater about it too. That it's just like, I like it like a pool game. I liken this to a pool game, and it's like, I want to win a pool game, but more than that, I want to make some good shots along the way. That's kind of what I'm looking to do. Have a fun shot. Maybe get an opportunity to do a one-hand shot or a behind-the-back shot or, something goofy, some weirdo cut. I get just as much joy out of successfully making some of those shots than I do out of winning a game. And that's what I enjoy about this is, some of the weird things that you can do and some of the weird moments. But like one of the things that he was talking about, that just general ideas of how what's generally regarded as strong play or not strong play. But one is like we'll find ourselves in this situation where there's like a ball there and everybody is like has no movement, but you're all trying to do something with the ball. And one of the ideas is that if you are trying to do something with the ball and that's done, you get out of there and you let somebody else come in and do it. Somebody that has some momentum, and you can kind of keep cycling that way. And I do think that is a strong strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see here. This was one
excuse me,
that he showed. So the defending team currently has the ball. The challenger's role is to pressure the defense, blocking the ball if possible, or at least forcing blue to try to make a play to get it out. This orange player is positioned to take advantage of a successful challenge or pass. And the last man back is ready to support the challenger if the ball makes it through. So now that he challenged the ball, so it was this guy's now duty to, he's now in a spot to be able to become the new challenger. This person ends up going back to be last man to support. This person gets boost. But because this was a successful challenge, the person who was playing defense now can churn and play ball. So, and this guy, and this is what's awesome too. He's like gaining boost or remove a goalie if need to. And I love that. It's just like, oh, you're there. The goalie's there. Why do you not just remove him? It's like, yeah, I guess we probably should. Anytime you have an opportunity to, you're just there and remove a goaltender, just try to do that.
mm-hmm.
But so. Just a couple. I thought those GIFs were really nice.
I've done that a few times.
Small,
like,
and then you do Minecrafting.
That's that one. I was like, I veered away at the last second because I felt bad because it was like 6-0 on that particular one. I was like, oh, that'd just be rude.
Like I had one too where it was like it was going towards the goal, and so instead of just like smacking it out there, I just like knocked it into the corner, and then they just scored on me, and I was like, yeah, that's what you get, right? For no good deed goes unpunished. It's like, maybe you shouldn't just not do that. Just, yeah, Tater. Thanks for those GIFs. I thought those were really nice, succinct ways to. And if nothing else, it just shows you like something, for it to look at. It's like, well, instead of doing this, why don't we could do that? Or it's a really nice little visual aid, because when you're in game, it's kind of hard to communicate, especially if it's in the middle of a game, right? And you're not doing something.
Yeah, it's like some of the stuff, like a lot. I need to work on ball handling and stuff. And you guys are saying a lot of stuff you just need to do while you're playing the game. By playing the game, you'll learn. And I get that, but also I can't learn ball handling per se by playing a game, because I can't just sit there and be like, oh, I'm pushing this wrong button for this stuff. They don't work while you're playing a game.
yeah, I hear you on that. Because it's like, no, they're not going to just sit there and let you just keep trying to dribble.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to keep stealing it away from you, and you want to try to maintain possession of the ball for longer than 5 seconds or something like that. So yeah, I get that. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, well, so that's all I had for today's dribbling.
Cool.
Yep.
So were you guys thinking that you wanted to get on tonight, or what?
Yeah,
What are you looking at?
Yeah, if we can, hopefully. Are you available, Tater, for potentially some Rocket Socket? He said that he had that hot, steamy solo session, but that he could potentially reschedule it. So, right? So.
Yeah. So let us know. That way, we can play
Yeah,
a double if you're busy doing your hot solo stash.
Yeah, so it looks like after 8 we'll try to have a menage a trois.
Cool.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody who hopped on today. We appreciate it. Appreciate your eyeballs and your ear holes. If you haven't hit any of those buttons that matter, the likes, the shares, and subscribe, please do so. Tell your mother, tell your brother, even tell your secret lover. Studio Johnny Q, where we take that sweet, sweet nerd stuff and we try to make it just a little bit sweeter. And thanks again, Hot
Love yourselves
Local
and
Mom.
love one another.
We've been getting we got Hot Local Mom and Wet Grannies, and we've had a lot of people hopping in the channel. It's good stuff. I'm not sure what that's about, but it makes me smile. So I'm going to take comfort where I find it. Anything before we leave the good people, Randy's?
Just stay safe and healthy, and do whatever makes you happy. Basically.
Yeah. Try to be good to yourself. That's try to do something today that's good for yourself, but is not detrimental to somebody else. Do something good for yourself that doesn't come at the cost of somebody else. That's what I'm trying to say. And with that, we will leave you with the doctor's promise of never cowardly, never cruel, never give up, never give in. And we will exit with some funky, funky outro music.
Bye.